Hi, my friend. Welcome to your Chore Companion. If you're overwhelmed, avoiding your chores, or just need someone to clean alongside you, you're in the right place. For the next 15 minutes, we're going to clean our bathroom together, side by side. No pressure to finish everything, no perfect before and after, just a little window of time where we show up and do what we can. There are so many Clean With Me videos out there, and I love the idea of them, but every time I put it on, I just end up watching them instead of cleaning. So here, we're not giving our brains anything distracting to watch. Instead, we'll just see a timer. Because this is meant to be more like cleaning with a friend, where I'm in the room with you. We're both doing our thing together. And along the way, I'll tell you a few interesting facts about good old towels today, okay? We wrap ourselves in them, we toss them over racks, we fold them without thinking, so we may as well know something about them. So, are you ready? Let's do this. Okay, we're starting gently. I'm not tackling the whole room. I'm just adjusting what's already here. I'm straightening the shower curtain, smoothing it out so it hangs evenly. Then I'm folding the bath towel neatly over the rack instead of leaving it slightly crooked like I always do. Nothing dramatic, just bringing a little order back into the lines of the room. It's surprising how much that alone changes the mood. Now I'm clearing a small patch of counter so we can actually see the surface again. Not organizing everything, just creating breathing room. Already feels lighter. So, towels. Modern, fluffy towels are actually much newer than most of us think. In ancient Rome, people didn't step out of baths and wrap up in cotton. They used something called a strigil, which was a curved metal tool. They would apply oil to their skin and scrape it off, removing dirt along with it. Efficient, but also a little intense. Cloth drying methods existed in ancient Egypt and other early civilizations, usually with linen. But here's something fascinating. As far back as 3,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians were using linen cloths not only for drying, but also in religious purification rituals. Linen was considered pure and sacred. Priests wore linen garments during temple ceremonies, and washing followed by drying with clean linen symbolized spiritual as well as physical cleansing. So towels, in a way, were tied to ritual purity long before they became everyday bathroom items. But the soft, absorbent towel we know today did not show up until much later. The version closest to what we recognize originated in Turkey in the 17th century, in the city of Bursa. These were called peştemals, flat-woven cotton towels used in Turkish baths. If you've ever seen those thin, striped Turkish towels, that's where they trace back to. And here's something even more interesting. Peştemals were flat and lightweight, designed to dry quickly in humid bathhouses. They weren't fluffy at all. The fluffy towel didn't exist yet. Cotton processing technology simply wasn't advanced enough to create dense, looped fabrics. Towels were more about practicality than comfort. And early hand-woven towels were actually expensive luxury items. They took time, skill, and high-quality fibers to produce. In many regions, only wealthy households owned dedicated drying cloths. For most people, fabric was reused and repurposed constantly, so having a towel specifically for bathing was once a quiet symbol of wealth. In traditional Turkish baths, towels were layered, one wrapped around the waist, one around the shoulders, sometimes even one over the head, not just for modesty, but for insulation. So towels were part of ritual, not just utility. Isn't that kind of lovely? That something so simple carries that kind of history? Okay, I'm wiping down the counter now. And I'm noticing how much more motivated I feel once the space has a little visual clarity. I didn't need a full reset, just enough to see progress. Now here's where it gets interesting. The fluffy, looped towel we all think of today is made from something called terry cloth. Terry cloth is woven with loops that stick up from the surface. Those loops are what make it absorbent. The word terry comes from the French word tirer, which means to pull, because those loops are pulled up during weaving. So every time we dry our hands, we're pressing water into tiny cotton loops that were intentionally engineered to grab moisture. And here's the clever part. Those loops increase surface area. The more surface area something has, the more water it can absorb. It's the same principle that makes a sponge work. Not all terry cloth is created equal, though. The longer and denser the loops, the more absorbent the towel. That's why some towels feel plush and heavy, while others feel thin and barely do the job. There's actually a measurement called GSM, grams per square meter. Luxury towels usually fall between 600 and 900 GSM. Hotel towels often sit around 500 to 600. Lightweight gym towels might be closer to 300. So if you've ever wondered why some towels feel like a hug and others feel like a suggestion, that's why. Now, terry cloth isn't the only type of towel weave. There are actually several different types, including terry, waffle or honeycomb, velour, flat-woven Turkish towels, and microfiber. Waffle towels have a grid-like texture that looks like a honeycomb. They're thinner and slightly coarser than traditional terry, but they dry much faster. That makes them ideal in humid climates where thick towels can stay damp for too long. So sometimes thinner actually works better. Okay, I'm moving to the sink now. Just doing a quick rinse and wipe. Nothing fancy, just making it nicer for later. The sink is always the turning point for me. Once the sink is clean, the bathroom starts to feel emotionally lighter. I don't know why the faucet shine feels so satisfying, but it does. Also, can we talk about hand towels for a second? Why do they get damp immediately? We hang them nicely, we smooth them out, and somehow 2 hours later they look like they've been through something dramatic. I'm actually swapping mine out right now for a fresh one. There's something about a fresh towel that feels like a reset, even if nothing else changes. Here's something fascinating. In Japan, traditional towels called tenugui are very thin and flat woven. They dry quickly, take up no space, and are incredibly versatile. In Japan, space efficiency matters, so bulky towels were never the default. In Scandinavian countries, linen towels are common. Linen dries faster than cotton and is naturally more resistant to bacteria, which helps in colder climates where drying takes longer. So sometimes, thinner actually works better. Okay, fun fact. Hotels almost always use white towels. It's not just aesthetic. White towels can be bleached and washed at extremely high temperatures without worrying about color fading. Everything can be washed together, no sorting. There's also something called the white standard in hospitality. White makes stains visible, which sounds counterintuitive, but it builds trust. If a white towel looks clean, we believe it is clean. Cleanliness is partly visual, and we are very visual creatures. Now here's something you probably didn't know. Some high-end hotels actually embed RFID tracking chips into their towels, because large luxury hotels can lose thousands of towels per year. High-quality hotel towels can cost anywhere from $10 to $30 each to produce at hospitality grade. When you multiply that by hundreds or thousands, tracking them suddenly makes financial sense. Tiny embedded RFID tags help inventory teams know where linens are moving throughout the property. Okay, pause with me for a second. We're about halfway through. Look around. Even if it doesn't look dramatic, something has shifted. The room feels steadier. This is our moment to ease into a quiet stretch. I'm going to keep moving right alongside you, and we'll let the music take over for a few minutes. I'll come back in a bit and tell you one of my favorite towel facts. back. I always get so much done during this quiet stretch. Let's keep going together. All right, my favorite towel fact. Towel warmers became especially popular in Victorian England. Bathrooms were cold, homes were drafty. Stepping out of a bath into chilly air was not pleasant. So heated towel racks were installed partly to help towels dry faster and partly to make that transition more comfortable. And now they're considered this little spa-like luxury detail. But originally, they were just solving a practical problem. I love when something practical becomes cozy over time. It feels like such a human evolution. All right, I'm scrubbing the toilet bowl now. This is not glamorous, but we're doing it together. And I always think this part is worse in my head than it actually is. Let the product do the heavy lifting while we wipe something else. Teamwork. Okay, quick towel science moment. Towels can harbor millions of bacteria after a few days if they stay damp. But it's not the towel itself that's dirty, it's the moisture. That's why most experts recommend washing bath towels every 3 to 4 uses. But here's the thing. Airflow matters more than frequency sometimes. Bacteria thrive in warm, damp environments. So if a towel dries completely between uses, bacterial growth slows dramatically. Towels dry best when they're fully spread out. So when we hang them properly instead of bunching them up, they actually stay fresher longer. Look at us, we're actually doing microbiology here. It's such a tiny change, but it makes a real difference. And here's something most people don't think about. Bath towels generally have a lifespan of about 5 years. Over time, the cotton fibers break down, the loops flatten, the structure weakens. Even if they still look fine, they gradually lose absorbency and integrity. So if you have a towel that just isn't performing anymore, it might not be you, it might just be time. Here's something I love. Cotton fibers are hollow. When water touches them, it travels upward through those hollow channels through capillary action, the same force that allows plants to pull water up from their roots. So when you press a towel to your skin, water isn't just sitting there, it's being drawn upward through microscopic tubes. Nature engineering meets textile engineering. Also, towels often become more absorbent after a few washes because manufacturing coatings wash out. And fabric softener, it can actually reduce absorbency because it coats fibers in a thin layer that makes them feel soft but slightly blocks those hollow channels. So if you've ever had a towel that feels soft but somehow doesn't dry you well, that might be why. There's also an environmental side to towels. Cotton is one of the most water-intensive crops in the world. Producing a single bath towel can require hundreds of gallons of water when you account for irrigation and processing. That's partly why some brands experiment with bamboo blends. Bamboo grows quickly and requires less water, though processing it into fabric has its own complexities. And speaking of scale, towels are often manufactured in massive continuous rolls. A single 255-meter length of woven fabric can be produced and then cut into dozens or even hundreds of individual rectangular towels. So what looks like a simple folded stack in a store actually started as one very long, uninterrupted piece of cloth. Something so ordinary has such a large footprint, and yet we use it every single day without thinking about it. Did you know that there's actually a National Towel Day? It's celebrated every year on May 25th in honor of Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In his book, he famously described the towel as the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can carry. So every May 25th, fans around the world carry a towel with them as a tribute, which I just love. A simple household item turned into a symbol of preparedness and humor. Okay, we're coming into our last few minutes. This is where we do a tiny final push. Not in a hustle way, just in a let's make future us feel relieved way. Pick one small finishing task. Maybe it's wiping the light switch. Maybe it's straightening the shower curtain. Maybe it's wiping down all the bottles in the shower. Just one. While we do that, here's something I love. There's research showing that small completion rituals, like folding a towel neatly, give our brain a tiny dopamine reward. It signals closure, which may be why a freshly folded stack of towels feels so satisfying. It's order made visible, and visible order tells our nervous system you handled something. Repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity feels safe. When we wipe the counter, when we fold the towel, when we smooth the curtain, we're not just cleaning, we're reinforcing that we can return a space to order. Not perfectly, just steadily. Small resets add up more than occasional overhauls. That's why this works. And that's our 15 minutes together today. Absolutely amazing. If you want to keep going, absolutely do. But if you're ready to stop, you can stop, knowing you really showed up today. And even if we didn't get to all of it, you did amazing. I hope you're so very proud of yourself. Thank you so much for being my chore companion today, where it feels like you and I are cleaning with a friend. It sure helps me get things done more easily.